Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and I'm a Forbes contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. Today's guests are Paul Elio, the CEO of Elio Motors, and Ron Miller, the CEO of StartEngine. Paul and Ron, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
We're thrilled to have you back. I was mentioning to you before that our most popular episode of 2015, in fact, our most popular show ever, was the episode we did together last summer. And so I've been eager to catch up with you and talk about how things are going now as you're wrapping up the offering that we were talking about last summer when it was really just getting started. Ron, why don't you give us a quick overview of the status of the offering right now?
Sure. Well, thanks, Devin. Where the status of the offering is currently, it has now nearly completed its full cycle. It started off as a test the waters campaign, which gave the opportunity for investors to indicate in a non-binding way their interest in possibly purchasing shares. And then just before Thanksgiving, the Elio Motors received the authorization from the SEC to go live, to begin actually selling shares and collecting cash. And on February 1st, the funding round will close, and we think that it's likely to be probably somewhere between 17 and 18 million as our sort of projected outcome, but it could be a little higher.
That's great. Really a remarkable achievement, especially given market conditions. Ron, the IPO market kind of fizzled last fall, and the broader market has really been volatile is Wall Street speak for saying it's been going down. How do you think you've been able to do this in spite of all of those headwinds?
I think, Devin, at the end of the day, individual investors have looked at this opportunity, they've looked at Paul Elio, they've looked at the vehicle, and they've seen how revolutionary it truly is. And from that perspective, I think they've become believers in what this company is and the team behind it. That would be my best guess. And for that reason, it's not subject to the winds of the market as a traditional IPO may be, or a traditional, perhaps, holding that is already on one of the public markets.
Well, Paul, let's turn our attention to you. Everyone is focused on your remarkable car, less than $7,000 sticker price, 84 miles to the gallon. How is the development cycle coming? Where are we in the process? And I know what really people want to know is they want to know, when can I drive one of these bad boys?
Right, that is the ultimate question. So this round of funding has made a big impact on that timing. So we set up so we could do multiple closes. So we've already received money from this Reg A Plus offering, and I'm in the Detroit metro area today. And as I speak, there are engineers detailing parts so that we can build the E1 series. So we're in the process of getting those vehicles built. So the process from here is we're going to build 25 E1 vehicles labeled E1A through E1X with various missions in life, front, side, and rear crash tests and durability, etc. And then based on the strength of that validation, you kick out the hard tools and then you go into production.
So it seems like that's a timeline that you can reasonably estimate. What kind of timeline do you expect that to take in order to get from production mode?
So we're targeting fourth quarter of 2016, so the end of the year.
Wow, that'll be very exciting. I suspect there is some real overlap between the people who are interested in owning one of these vehicles and those who are interested in owning shares of the vehicle. How have you been able to track that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have recent data, but early on, I think it was like something like 60 or 70% of the people who were buying shares in Elio via the Reg A Plus offering also held reservations for vehicles. So you're right. There's a big correlation there. They've been familiar with us. They've watched us for a long time. they see our progress, and then they bought shares.
One of my Twitter followers was just asking if the people who are not yet on the waiting list might be able to buy a car this year.
Well, so once we start production, the plan is the line will be capable of 500 vehicles per day per shift. So you start out with one shift, you run the line about 70% speed, it takes you 45 days to get 100%. You split that team into two, you run two shifts, 70% speed, takes you another 45 days to hit 100%. So it takes us 90 days to be at the point where we're making 1,000 vehicles a day, and we build about 19,000 vehicles during those 90 days. And we currently have 49,000 reservations, so that you can kind of figure out where you lie from there.
So it sounds to me like maybe if you're not on the waiting list, you're not going to get a car this year, but maybe early next year.
Well, we're not going to start production until late this year, so yeah, that's true.
Okay. How are you going to distribute the cars, Paul? What's the dealer situation, the dealer network, or are you going to try a Tesla approach of selling these direct to consumers?
Right, so we're going to do company-owned stores, kind of like Tesla. Where we differ is in the overall business model. So we're going to abandon the package system. And I think this is what makes Elio unique. So, you know, the big guys do LX, SX, and DX, right? And they do that to constrain their inventory. They can build millions of variants of any given model, which would cripple their inventory. So they try to constrain it to 300 to 500 builds. They package stuff up. So all of our vehicles come standard with air conditioning, power windows, power door lock, and a stereo, because pretty much everybody wants that. All the rest of the upscale content you're seeing on a vehicle, you can get on your Elio, but we had it post-manufacture. So if you want a power leather seat, well, Lear's our seating supplier, we can get you that. If you want blind spot protected mirrors, Continental's our electronics partner, we can get you that. So the process is you come into our store, say I want the red automatic with the leather seat and the blind spot detecting mirrors. That order goes to 107 Marston Center where the content gets added. We close our stores at 9 p.m. We build out vehicles till midnight, so we have 3 hours to clear the system. At midnight, the vehicles go on trucks, and with 7 Marston Center, we're within 9 hours of all of our stores. So at 10 a.m. the next day, you get the vehicle exactly the way you want it the day before, no matter what time you come to the store.
Well, this is really exciting, Paul. I mean, you've been working on this how long? It's been several years, right, Paul?
I kicked the project off in 2008. So yeah, it's been a long journey. I really think the Reg A Plus offering and being publicly listed here in the near future puts us over the hump.
That is a key milestone. Now, Ron, where will the shares trade, and when will they start trading?
So the current plan, as I understand it, is that Paul intends to list it on the OTC, and so I think Paul would be best, I think, to address the exact timing of that, but I know that he's proceeding in a diligent way to get the trading available as soon as possible, and the thing that excites us about it is at the end of the day it creates liquidity for those investors who've invested in this very first Reg A Plus deal.
Yeah, it's exciting to see this work, very much like a mini-IPO, right? People put money in and they get to see the shares trading quickly after they make the investment, like a traditional IPO. So Paul, when and where will they trade, and what ticker symbol will you use?
So it's going to be on the OTCQX, and the process is we're going to stop accepting investments February 1st. And then we have to have a lag because we have to make sure all the ACHs have cleared, all the wires have cleared, all the anti-money laundering is done before we can list. So there's a couple-week lag while we make sure all that stuff comes in and is cleared out. Then you apply to FINRA, and then when we hear back from FINRA, you can list. So ballpark, you know, somewhere between 3 and 5 weeks, I would, you know, crystal ball it. But, it certainly isn't a year from now. It's short.
So probably March. We can expect
late February, early March, I would suspect. You know, and then we've requested the symbol ELIO. So hopefully we get that. That's kind of a natural one for us.
Yeah. And I presume no one else has it, so the odds would seem good that that will be your symbol. So
yes.
That's exciting. Now, Ron, let's talk a little bit about the offering. If people are interested today, we only have a few days left. What's the process that someone needs to go through in order to buy shares in the offering?
That's actually fairly simple, Devin. To the extent that somebody would be interested in purchasing shares in Elio Motors, all they need to do is go on to our site, which is www.startengine.com, and what they would see is an ability to click on the Elio Motors panel that shows up on the site. And once they click on that, they'll, of course, be able to see the full information. They can watch a video that Paul and his team put together. And also there's an Invest Now button. And they would click that button, and then it's a very simple step-by-step instruction. It's really just simply filling out your name and contact information, as well as the ACH information necessary to make the investment. And the system walks you through it. It's really pretty simple, just as it would be, for example, any kind of online purchase. So, so it's a relatively streamlined, simple process. And at the end of the day, that was kind of the idea here. And I give Paul a lot of credit for being willing to step into a process that had yet been tested, because he launched that campaign on the very day when the rules went live. And what it represents is an opportunity for the individual guy or gal to invest in the next great opportunity. And that's what Reg A Plus is really all about. And so here, if you compare it, for example, to other great companies like Facebook or Google or even Tesla, those folks never got a chance to get into those deals, because you had to be, number one, an accredited investor, which means it was limited to only rich people, but then you had to be a well-connected rich person in order to find these opportunities and invest in them. Whereas here, it sort of opened it up. I sometimes think of it as the democratization of the access to investment in startup and growth companies.
Well, this is such an exciting company to be a part of. It's been, I'm sure, exciting for you to be a part of this offering. What's the minimum investment that you require an investor to make, Ron?
Well, each issuer under Reg A Plus can set those terms, and on the Elio Motors campaign, it's $600 is the minimum investment.
Now, Paul, how did you pick $600 as the minimum investment?
So that's 50 shares.
Okay.
So you kind of got to balance. There are fixed costs for every investor, and so you have to balance the cost of acquiring that investor. You know what I mean? But you want to keep it low so it's open to everybody, and it seemed like a nice balance point.
Yeah. Well, this is really a fun, exciting thing, and I'm excited to see what will come of this. So, Paul, tell us a little bit more about the car. It's well refined, well defined. You've told us some of the features, some of the basics, but tell us more about what it is, for what role it plays in the automotive pantheon.
Well, I really think that we're a new thing. I think the best analogy is the Sony Walkman, right? The original Sony Walkman was a radio, but it was different because it was personal radio, right? So people didn't stop buying home stereos, they didn't stop buying car stereos, they just bought Walkmans. And I think that's what Elio is. It's personal transportation. So part of the premise for a big segment of our market is, Americans buy big vehicles for a reason, right? You can't get plywood home in a Prius, and you can't tow a boat with a Versa, right? We like to disparage ourselves as Americans because we buy these big vehicles and we're sloppy, but the truth is we buy those vehicles with a specific purpose in mind, and we use them for that reason for part of their lives. But most of their lives get spent one person driving back and forth to work, right? And the problem up till now is small vehicles don't get enough gas mileage and they're too expensive, so that they're not an and choice, they're an or choice. So I have to give up the ability to get plywood home from Home Depot in order to get good gas mileage because I can't afford both. And at $6,800 and 84 miles per gallon, it becomes an and choice rather than an or choice. So I think that's one of the fundamentals of it. So that's for, you know, the upper, say, 2/3 of the economic strata. At the lower end, you know, if you're just starting out in high school, college, and your alternate's a 120,000-mile-old vehicle, a brand new Elio under warranty, I think it's compelling, you know, to have that security of a vehicle under warranty. And then going down even a little further, there's a Harvard economist who did a study, and it said the #1 predictor on whether you get out of poverty or not is mobility. It correlates better than crime rates in your community, test scores in your grade school, or the number of two-parent households. The #1 correlator is mobility. There's a New Jersey study that says something like 60% of their chronically unemployed have had to turn down jobs because they had no way to get to the job, right? And at $6,800 and 84 miles per gallon, you can afford to get to the job. And I think that's one of the unique things about Elio is it's the only vehicle I know that spans those demographics, right? From most of our reservations skew wealthy, right? They're buying this in addition to their existing fleet. And I think when we're in full swing production, there's going to be a lot of people who are currently unemployed who will buy one so they can get to their job. And there's no other vehicle I know of that can span those kind of demographics.
It is a fascinating idea. I mean, this is a wonderful car. It's really exciting to be thinking about a vehicle that's so cheap and so cheap to operate, and also so environmental. I wonder if you'd just comment briefly on what your sense of the environmental footprint is. Obviously, low carbon output, but what about the other equipment that we're accustomed to seeing on cars to manage the air quality?
So we intend to meet four-wheel vehicle emission standards day one. Johnson Matthey is our catalytic converter supplier. Johnson Matthey has made 1 out of every 3 catalytic converters ever produced on the planet. So they seem to be pretty good at it. So, you know, it's a modern, clean engine. And if we hit our business nominal business case numbers for 5 years, we can reduce total U.S. gas consumption by nearly 0.5%. That is a meaningful number. There's no other single project that can have that kind of impact on our carbon footprint that I'm aware of.
Yeah, so your vision is that for most people, what they do is they park the Suburban when they go to work, and they drive the Elio to the office and back, and use the Suburban when they need to haul all 9 children or the plywood, the sheet of plywood, up to the cabin. So it will replace a lot of miles being driven by larger, less efficient cars then, right?
Correct. Like in my case, I'm a divorced dad of 3, and so I have a minivan, and on the days I have my kids, I have them 50-50. So half the days of the month, I need that functionality. Half the days of the month, I'm driving a 7-passenger vehicle all by myself. But like I said, small cars are an or choice because of their price point, whereas Elio's an and. So on, you know, Mama days I drive the Elio, and on Daddy days I drive my minivan. Yeah. So, you know, it plays out differently for different folks. But like I said, we buy the vehicles we have for a reason, you know.
Yeah. Well, listen, gentlemen, I want to take advantage of the opportunity I have with you to get some personal insights from you. And when we visited last time, we didn't get through this. The technology failed us, and I apologize for that. I'm hoping we can finish our conversation today. But Ron, maybe we can start with you. You're becoming an icon in the crowdfunding world because of your success with Elio. I mean, let's paint it for what it is. But as you become an icon and an inspiration and a role model to other people, who do you look up to? Who inspires you?
Oh, that was a layup for me, Devin. Thank you for that. This is real simple for me, and that is, I think the person I most admire is my son. And the reason I say that is because of his perseverance. That's the one attribute that I see every single time that I believe is the greatest determinant of success. And when I say success, what I mean is being able to live a life and do the things you want in life that are really important to you. And I think it's that perseverance that that is the ultimate factor, the make or break, that decides who will be successful and who won't. And, you know, to be quite frank with you, as it related to the crowdfunding, world, you know, we started off intending on launching our platform under Title III. And when it didn't happen, we didn't go away. We kept fighting, and we fought with everybody. We fought with people in the industry. We fought with Congress, you know, to try to get their support. We certainly fought with the SEC to get them to hurry up. And we pushed and we pushed and we pushed, and we were like the Energizer bunny that just wouldn't give up. And so I think it showed up here. Importantly, and I think it's a great transition. Well, two things. One, I'd mentioned that often people credit Richard Branson. So if there's like a role model for me in that, it's certainly him. He's the guy that basically gets knocked down and can get up faster and with more integrity than anybody else. And it's not because he's the smartest guy in the room, but it's because of that attribute that I think ultimately made him as successful as he is. Now, finally, I think a great transition is that I think Paul Elio embodies that concept as much as anybody. I mean, he's, you know, weathered many, many storms in order to bring his vision to life. And he is as determined or more determined than any entrepreneur I've ever met to not just create a company, but to really change the course of transportation by bringing this vehicle into the market.
That's great. Now, Paul, for you, who inspires you?
Actually, the reasoning is the same. The person's different. It's Thomas Edison. You know, I'm an engineer. I'm an inventor, and that of all the people in history, I think he wins the award for most persistent. You know, he went through 10,000 different filaments to get the light bulb to work. And I think if you would have gone through 100 or 500, you could claim persistence. 10,000 is just off the charts of just not giving up. You know, I know I can figure it out. I mean, what drove the guy at 9,980 to go, one more try, I'm going to get this. You know, like how do you keep going after 9,000 failures and just I know I can get it. You know.
Yeah.
And that I think is what makes things happen. Once you know that you can achieve something that really matters, is just not being willing to give up no matter what. Just figuring out a way around any obstacle, you know. And that's hard, you know. It's easy to give up, and it's easy to say, well, I tried hard, but that didn't work, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, Paul, I wonder as a follow-up if you can explain why it was that when you decided to create a product, that was affordable, radically affordable, which enables people who are to buy cars. Certainly, they're buying cars that are new under warranty instead of have 120,000 miles on them, as you say, and also that are so economically or environmentally friendly. What motivates that part of you?
You know, part of it, I think this is a Thomas Edison quote, that what makes a good inventor is a show-off, right? And so day one, with no data, before we drew the first line in CAD, I said, I want to build a $5,000 car that gets 60 miles per gallon. That was this arbitrary, I just thought it'd be cool to build a $5,000 car, right? And we started working the problem, we started getting quotes from suppliers, we started doing the math, and $5,000 is just too many compromises. Like there was no trunk, you know. Like you're gonna have some big misses, and so $5,000 crept up to $6,800. But we did better on the arbitrary mileage target. You know, 60 miles per gallon turned into 84 when we put some math behind it. But yeah, just starting with a ridiculous goal and saying let's see if we can do this. You know, and then the impact follows. So that's what gets me up every day is the impact of the project. You know, we create thousands and thousands of American jobs. We make a big difference in our trade deficit. You know, we didn't talk about it, but we're targeting 90% North American content. You know, we just announced at the auto show that MTX has committed to assembling our audio in the U.S. And when was the last time you bought a vehicle of any flavor that had American-made radio in it, right? So, you know, we're committed to sourcing as much as we can here. Because it matters, you know. And then we talked about mobility for folks who are struggling and the environment. I mean, there are a lot of reasons that this project just has to happen, you know.
Yeah, I hear you. Ron, why does crowdfunding appeal to you? What is the magic that makes you care about the democratization of capital?
Well, Devin, I've started and exited successfully 5 companies over the course of my career, and I've spent most of my life professionally in and around entrepreneurs. And what I've learned is that the ability to raise capital is probably the greatest inhibitor to bringing great innovation and great companies into the market. And oftentimes it has less to do with the merits of the idea and more to do with the timing of the market, the composition of the founders, or things that are, I guess, outside of traditional validation of value. And what crowdfunding does is 2 things. Number one is that it enables, on a fair basis, for entrepreneurs to go out and show the world their innovation or their business and ask for support. And so it does that on a fair basis without regard to who you know or even necessarily what your history is. But in addition to that, it enables the founder to get that validation from the customer. So when you contrast that to the traditional VC model, where a founder comes up with an idea, goes to the VC puts in some money, there's exactly 2 people that are convinced this is a good idea, the founder and the VC. And then all of a sudden a lot of money is being spent, a lot of things are happening, but no one's ever gone to the market and saying, hey, do you like this idea? And more importantly, Devin, it's not about whether I like the idea, it's do you believe in this idea strongly enough that you want to write a check to invest? And I think at the end of the day, that's what's one of the most powerful things that's going on here, is that it shows that Elio has got a market validation of his business model and concept and the vehicle to the point where some $17 million of investment from probably 6,000 unique investors are made into that. At this point, to me, it's clear that the market wants that car. And I'm not saying that out of my opinion, I'm saying that out of facts, that 6,000 people wrote checks. I think there's a lot of other people who really like the idea of the car but just couldn't or didn't want to write the check for whatever reason, right? But there's lots of folks. So I think at this point, what we've done for the American economy is we are now going to support a guy like Paul Elio with the capital he needs to bring his innovation out. And at the same time, we're also going to preserve our precious resources, because the fact of the matter is people like Paul are rare and precious to the American economy. He's the kind of guy that has always driven this economy and will continue to drive it in the future. But we can't afford to have him wasting his time on something that just he and his VC think are a good idea. We need to preserve that precious capital, that human capital, that entrepreneurial capital, for things that we know are going to be valid in the market and valued in the market. And that's what we just did.
I think that's a great insight. Now, Ron, one last question quickly. I want to just ask you, and I'll ask Paul too, for an impact hack, some tip that would help all of us do more good in the world. What's your tip? What's your impact hack?
My impact hack, I would say, is to continue, in the context of what we're talking about today, the impact hack is really simple. It's to put your eye towards those things and invest in those things you believe in and that you believe will bring a positive change in the world. It's kind of that, doing well by doing good, I'll put it that way. And I think what that means here is looking for those opportunities to invest in things that do good in the world. And if you do that, I think the doing well part, I think the returns on those investments, Devin, are going to be real positive.
Yeah, I hear you. That's a great insight. Now, Paul, last to you, what's your impact hack?
Be nice. No, honestly, I think there's an impression that folks who are successful are mean and underhanded, and as this project has evolved, Elio is really a consortium of partnerships. We have 34 of the best auto parts suppliers in the world. We got Pep Boys, etc. Right? And as I've gotten to know these executives at these different organizations, I find the higher up you go, normally the nicer people get, because success happens because you get along with folks. You know what I mean? It's not that kind of that traditional view of things. And so Elio, one of the things that we've done differently is how we treat the supply base, and trying to create real partnerships and real relationships and long-term commitments to each other. And it's bore great fruit for us.
Oh, fantastic. I think that's a great tip, and it really does make sense. It explains why I am where I am, and I don't mean that as a boast. So, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. Before you go, Ron, tell people again how they can find the offering. Where do they go?
Yeah, so if they're interested in looking at the offering or investing in it, it's go to www.startengine.com, and then if you look on the platform, you will see the Elio Motors panel. And just click on that, and you'll get all the information about the campaign. You'll be able to see the preliminary offering circular, as well as a great video that explains about the vision and mission of the company.
Fantastic. And Paul, tell people where they can go to learn more about queuing up for a car.
ElioMotors.com. ELIOMotors.com.
Fantastic. Well, again, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to be with you. We wish you every success with this offering and look forward to seeing you again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
All righty. Let's do some.